UPSC. Since 11th and 12th, that was something that I had cultivated early on. I used to read the Hindu, I used to read other newspapers sometimes also because I liked reading it. So that sort of familiarity with the newspaper I already had. Towards the end, the third year of my preparation, the third year of my graduation, I started going through the syllabus. I started going through the notes as well. I used to attend classes as well, but I wasn't very serious at that time. I think it was properly in 2019 when I started my preparation, and so I think I wouldn't be a perfect in terms of role model, but I've seen people do it in 1 year. I think properly I did preparation for 1 year before the 2020 attempt, but I would still say I was familiar. I was gaining familiarity with the syllabus, with the topics from early on, since 2018. But 2019, I properly started. That was when I started studying with my group also at RCA. And post that, I gave my examination in 2020. Then the next year, I think 2020, the COVID pandemic time, I made my notes, which I was telling you about in terms of the collective notes that we made. And during the Hindi preparation, I think that also strengthened in terms of my understanding maybe, because I used to go through the notes in English, which I had prepared apart from the other notes, and I used to use Google Translate to sort of translate them into Hindi. So that was one year which went into that, and the next year, this 2021 attempt I gave in English. So it was a long journey, I would say.
My point was we try to read our whole syllabus, like first of all NCERTs and then standard books. First time in a book, like we have gone through the whole syllabus and all the books. So like, how much time and seriousness you give for the first time studying of all the books?
That's what I'm saying. I think it depends from person to person, but I think 1 year is a good enough time if you have all the material available and if you have the guidance available. So sometimes what happens for people is figuring out the strategy itself takes a lot of time. So, but I think once you have that strategy, and I think a positive right now is that lots of online resources are available, guidance is available. So I think, and also based on your background. So sometimes people with non-social sciences background have to go through the entire NCERTs as well from 6 to 12, which I say didn't go through. But if you're going through basic books, which I'm saying NCERTs and other basic books about Lakshmikant and everything, if you have a basic understanding, if you know what you're doing, if you have a clear-cut mindset, if you have clarity of mind, 1 year without any sort of external involvements, say if you're doing a job, I am personally saying, people who are going through jobs or pursuing other courses would know better. But I think 1 year of definite preparation without any other involvements is good enough for going through the syllabus. Okay, I think that is something that you prepare on your own. It depends on, say, for example, if you are from a certain home, so you prepare every single word which is there in your DAF. So if you're, say, from Uttar Pradesh, you would go through the history of Uttar Pradesh, the current economic situation of Uttar Pradesh, the statistics involved in terms of the sex ratio, everything regarding that. So DAF preparation would be, you just pick up something, say you went to a school, I went to Sardar Patel Vidyalaya. So if there's Sardar Patel involved, I could probably be asked a question about Sardar Patel as an individual rather than the school itself. So that every single word you have to carefully go through and prepare whatever you think, any sort of hobbies that you have in terms of how you could possibly use those hobbies in administration. If you have an optional subject, then a detailed analysis of that optional subject is also there. Another thing, say for example, history optional. A lot of questions of history were asked for me in the final interview as well. So your optional remains a consistent part of your entire preparation, even the interview.
How to deal with the compulsory papers?
Okay. I think compulsory papers you can deal with not too much hard work. If you, for example, my compulsory papers were English and Hindi. English is a compulsory paper anyway, but you can just go through, I think, previous year papers. Hindi, if you speak Hindi, if you are from the Hindi heartland sort of area, you wouldn't have a problem with states down south, I think regional languages are also available, or say in the northeast, regional languages are available. So I think the compulsory papers are chosen in a language where you are already comfortable with, apart from English. And English also is, I think, is not a very difficult sort of paper. So if you just go through previous year papers, the essay anyway you write in the general studies, so that also I think will work out well.
Ma'am, when you are taking coaching, if you are taking, then how you distribute your time between the newspaper reading and on the current affairs and studying the standard books or NCRTs along with the coaching?
I think I personally overall did rely more on self-study. But I think if you are taking coaching and you're taking coaching, you should take it seriously. I feel so. One thing that coaching institutes may provide is a consolidated material that is available to you. So, for example, ethics. I think Brijendra sir and I think notes here, Vajiram notes did help me, the class notes, especially for ethics. The internal security yellow book helped me for my internal security paper. So I think you need to understand what you're prioritizing in terms of time management. You were specifically asking. So if, for example, you're going for 2.5 hours, okay, so if, for example, you're going for 2.5 hours, that itself you should not consider as that portion done. That is one thing that you need to remember. Just because you've heard a teacher say something to you for 2.5 hours, that doesn't mean that it's done. You have the base which is ready, which you need to go home and revise. So if you're going through a class, if you're going to a coaching class, make sure that on that day itself, you come back home, you go through it, and the next time when, for example, you're coming to class, you have that ready with you. And I think all of you would be maintaining separate registers for separate subjects. So go through that. And apart from that, make your own targets as well. So sometimes what happens is there are classes on alternate days for different subjects. But I think for me, what also helped was keeping one subject at, like, apart from the revision that you're doing, whatever you've done in the past as well, make certain targets for your own self in terms of ki, acha, this is one basic book I'm covering. So NCRT, if say Geography 11th class NCRT you're covering, or Lakshmikant NCRT you're covering, make sure that you have a target for completing that book in a specific point of time. And it wouldn't hurt if you come to class the next day and you already know it. It will only help you. So you don't need to wait for the class to happen to read that book. That is something that I wanted to say, that don't completely rely on only what is given to you. You need to put in those hours for self-study and revising of your notes if you're sticking to a coaching class material, apart from the basic books. One second, let me just, someone ask else.
How does our graduation subject affect our interview?
It depends. I think interview is something that you can't predict. Sometimes you think, acha, this is something that will be asked. It isn't asked. Sometimes the interview is completely non-DAF based. So it's completely current affair based. So it depends from time to time, but you still have to prepare for it. So if you have gone through a certain degree, you need to prepare for it just in case it is answered, because you don't know, but you have to be safe. So for example, history was my graduation subject. It was also my optional subject, and there were questions regarding it in the interview. One second. Can you be a little louder?
How you remember or learn data and some chronological order dates?
In terms of remembering, there's no shortcut. Like, you have to revise, you have to, there are certain things that you need to, like, ऐसे बोलते हैं ना रट्टा, तो you have रट्टा लगाना पड़ेगा, कुछ चीज़ों में लगाना पड़ेगा. बेहतर ये रहता है कि you understand it also, कि सिर्फ क्योंकि chronology में क्या होता है ना, आजकल lot of, especially in prelims, I think what is asked is who was contemporary of this person, who was these are not things that you will directly remember ki acha Kalidas was a contemporary of Chandragupta Maurya, but you need to understand chronology roughly. You need to understand acha this person wrote about this is probably the time when he was there. So those sort of interconnections I think are important when you're studying. So that sort of effort you have to make yourself, but certain things you definitely have to remember. Say for example the national parks and wildlife sanctuaries I was talking to you about. So one way is एक state का you can just remember कि अच्छा MP में ये है ये है ये है ये है. What I tried to do was I jotted them down on the Google map. So I used to just look at it and then ask, ki, "Acha, this is probably nearby, this is near the border, that's why this happens." So little bit you can also try to remember if you're not good at remembering stuff.
And what's your strategy on agriculture? Nowadays, agriculture is most hot topics as a prelims as well as mains. So how you tackle with it?
I think agriculture last year, इस बार तो there were not many questions, but last year there was a lot of emphasis on agriculture on prelims. That's why what I did was I tried to make I'm only saying for prelims. What I tried to do was कि apart from the geography, Indian geography I think, which has emphasis on agriculture. That chapter is important. That did help me in eliminating a few questions. So stick to NCRTs first and foremost. Don't neglect NCRTs. Couple of questions I could answer on agriculture from just a basic reading of the NCRT. Secondly, something I tried to do which didn't help because UPSC again is very unpredictable and there was not a single question from agriculture in the next paper. So I tried to go through me and one of my friends, we tried to go through statistics of official government statistics, roughly broadly in terms of major export agricultural item, highest production, highest area. So that is a few pages of document we tried to make. But that I think was based on previous year analysis. So it may change again tomorrow. So that was as part of my previous year analysis preparation where I tried to make a certain notes for agriculture. That sometimes can also be done through the test series answers, test series questions, because coaching institutes often do that for you. So the answers of those test series can also be a source where you understand previous year questions. For mains, I think there's one Indian Express may explained page, agriculture page which also comes. That can also be helpful. So the newspaper again, for agriculture I had separate notes also and I used to keep adding from my newspaper.
Then we have NCRT, Yellow Book, class notes, and current affairs magazine and all. How to consolidate all these in single source?
Yeah.
We have multiple sources.
Yeah. I think it's important to stick to one source and add from other sources. So whatever source you're taking, say for example, I think I'll tell you about myself. So my main source were the notes that I had made and I used to keep adding. For example, for ethics, I had Vajiram notes, which were my source. I used to keep adding in terms of examples and quotes from other sources in terms of the newspaper. For internal security, my main source was the Yellow Book. I used to keep on adding examples from other sources. So stick to one source which you think is what is best, what works for you. Say for example, if economics notes from class you think would be good enough for you for the mains, or provide the main skeleton for the mains, stick to them. And any sort of other newspaper article you get which you think, or other example you think which would be necessary, or you're going through the current affair magazine towards the end, either highlight it in the current affair magazine and keep it with you because a certain amount would be required, or just add it in the notes if that is possible, if it's not big. So I think rather than completely relying what worked for me before the mains, I didn't have to wait for the yearly compilations to come in to start my preparation, because sometimes it takes time for them to come in. I used to start preparing, and when those yearly compilations used to come, I used to just go through the index, look at only the important parts and add them in my notes. So it's important to stick to a basic source and then keep adding whatever is necessary.
And it is necessary to make the notes of NCRT.
It depends. I think I personally didn't make them, but I read them multiple times. I was sort of comfortable with them. If you think it works for you, it's good enough. I made, so for example, if I'm going through the agriculture section, so just at the end of the last page where there was a blank page, I just wrote down cotton percentage in terms of area, percentage in terms of world production. So it was just these, like this big notes that I made on half a page at the end of the book. So when I'm revising just before the prelims, 2 days before the prelims, I don't read the entire chapter. I just look through the facts that are necessary for the prelims preparation. And the rest of them I didn't make. So I think it depends from person to person. I think you'll probably believe me because I'm standing here and I've got this. Something else works out for different people. There's no sure shot thing. What is required is studying and smart studying to a certain extent and relying on certain source. What those sources are, how you make your notes, that depends from person to person, and everyone has their own strategy. 1 second.
How to enhance the
Yeah. And I think that's something that people often miss out on in terms of how to better write answers. Apart from just reading, reading and writing are two different ball games altogether. So once you've gone through the material, as I said, go through previous year papers, start writing. Starting writing is very important. Just don't wait ki, acha, I'm still not good enough. Once you've completed the syllabus, try to look at question papers and just start writing, and you'll gradually get better. How will you get better? You won't just get better by keeping on writing and not evaluating yourself. Evaluate yourself. If you're joining a test series, do that. Apart from the test series also, what you can do is, if you're in a group of similar minded people, you can peer review your answers. Thirdly, what you can do is you can go through toppers answer sheets, and that I think is also quite important. Sometimes you don't know what's going wrong, and how can you figure out what you're not going wrong is when you look at people who've got good marks. And say, for example, 4 people have got really good marks in ethics. You can look at all 4 of their answer copies and see what works out for you best. There is something that they must have probably done better. So even if you can take 2 things and try to make them your own, try to incorporate them in your answer writing, over a period of time, I think it will get better. Certain model answers you can also probably make. Often coaching institutes give those model answers. So all of that, I think a combination of everything works.
Ma'am, for as you have said, for means answer writing, was you only referring to PYQs or you have tried questions of your own also, like framing questions of your own? Okay, if a topic is going like inflation as of now, then so do you used to write answer for that also?
I think I didn't consider myself qualified enough in terms of like writing answers to questions that I myself made. I used to write previous year question papers and the test series question papers. But in terms of, say, if something is going on in the news, I'll make notes for that. So I'll write why, what, way forward of that in my notes, but like not necessarily in answer writing format. Sorry, can you be a little louder? I have studied. I didn't go through all the yellow books, but I looked at some of them. I used to add stuff from it, and mainly I think certain books in terms of, say, the internal security one, certain ethics ones, I used.
Ma'am, have you referred to Ramesh Singh of economics and Nitin Singhani of art and culture, like apart from your all?
I personally didn't go through both of these books. For art and culture, I just stuck to the 11th class NCERT. Also, I had my background in that. I didn't think, and I think in terms of cost benefit, it's a really fat book. So I used to make, say, separate notes of Jainism, Buddhism. So those, I think, little sections you can go through. But I personally felt that it was a really bulky book. For economics, I stuck to the notes that I had. Some people use other coaching, any sort of coaching material, I think anything works, but I didn't personally use Ramesh Singh.
Since you are usually starting the preparation, how to have that feeling while giving the monthly and daily targets that whatever we are planning is sufficient or more needs to be done? And how to set that up?
Yeah, I think it's sometimes you keep on questioning yourself, is this enough? Is this enough? I think as long as you're sticking to the basics, you're sticking to NCERTs, you're not wasting time. You don't feel ki, this is something that I could have done better. I think most important at the end of the day is to know if you've done your 100%. So if you feel that you're doing that, at the same time, you have a strategy in place. You're not just hardworking for nothing. Like you're not just say, for example, going through one random book and not preparing your strategy. If you're sticking to the basic books, if you're doing your practice, if you're not wasting time, I think over a period of time, you will get results.
Is necessary to follow from the 6th standard NCERTs?
From 6th, I don't think so, but it depends. If you don't have a background in, say, social sciences, if you find 11th class NCERTs are too much for you, then go back a few years. If that is working out for you, then good enough. I think most important is the understanding of the subject. And if you're not getting an understanding from the later books, go back to the earlier books. I think it's a good idea.
It is getting difficult because not only lectures and studying NCERT, but at other times it's difficult to study. So how can I manage?
Yeah, I think time is something you'll struggle with throughout this preparation, and no one has figured that out till now. So, like, it's a prioritization that you have to do, but that prioritization, everyone has to figure out on their own what is more important for them, what are their weak areas, what are their strong areas. So, those things I think I can't give to you. What I can only give you is what worked out for me. Maybe it works out for you, maybe it doesn't. That's all I can say. But those. For newspaper. For newspaper, I think I personally had a habit of reading the newspaper. So towards the end, I used to take very little time. I used to just skim through, only read the bits that were important. But if, for example, if I'm making notes, say of a topic, it would take more time because I'm not just making notes of the newspaper, I'm making notes of the entire topic. So I would also search other things. So I didn't treat it as only newspaper reading at that time. I thought it was a sort of integrated preparation. So if, say, as I said, say a cybercrime thing is in the news, I would make wholesome one-page notes or two-page notes of cybercrime in which I'm also searching for other examples. So it would take more time. But say, like, if you're just reading the paper and also 1 hour maybe, if you're or half an hour, 1 hour, it depends. But like, don't stick to my words. Don't like ki acha Shruti said this, that's why I need to finish this. Yeah, 3 ghante. So it depends. Like, sometimes it took really long. Sometimes it took me like 20 minutes, 15 minutes because there was nothing of importance in the paper.
And for mathematics, NCERTs are important or not?
Mathematics, I'm not sure what are you talking about CSAT?
Yes.
I don't think that is the sort of mathematics which necessarily comes in the CSAT preparation. So I personally don't think it's important. If you're really bad with your basics and you think certain chapters you need to go through, I would not be able to comment on that. But I personally didn't need them. And I think coaching preparation can help, but certain basic things you can obviously go through, LCM, HCF, other things.
Then how to tackle whole entire preparation, highs and lows? How you can tackle?
Okay. In terms of, again, highs and lows, there are definite highs and lows in the entire preparation. And the highs you don't have to worry about because that's good enough for you. You will study more. For the lows, you need to like pick yourself up. And sometimes you have people who will pick you up and you should be grateful for that. Sometimes you won't have people to pick you up. So as hard as it is, you need to push yourself, remind yourself why you're doing it in the first place. If you also need to like identify the reasons why you think such a stage might have happened in terms of, say, a failure. So rather than just being sad about it, you need to accept it first and then understand probably what went wrong in your preparation maybe, and then try to act on it rather than just being sad. At the same time, I feel it is a very competitive examination. End of the day, there are very few seats, there is a lot of competition. So I think we need to talk about the lows a lot more than we often talk about, because I've seen people around me, I myself, there are a lot of lows, and I think a supportive environment is required in terms of, in every context, giving help to each other. This sort of competition we need to sort of understand and try to fight. And at the same time, you need, like, if you feel that this is not your calling, and sometimes people talk about not having a plan B and it being a very good thing, I personally don't completely agree to that. I feel if you really want to give this examination, if you think it's your calling, you should definitely do it, keep on doing it, identify your problem areas, keep on going for it. But if you think you would be better off somewhere else, if you think you know that this is the time, you've given a lot of time and effort in your preparation, you feel it's still not working out, I feel it is okay also to accept that. And I know people who have completed all of their attempts. There was nothing probably wrong in their hard work, or it was not as if they didn't try hard enough. But sometimes there are other factors at play also. So there's a need of acceptance in understanding that whatever is happening for the good. And as long as you're working hard enough, as long as you're putting your 100% and you don't have any regrets in terms of how much you did, I think everything happens for certain reason. Sorry? Revision plan?
Revision slot.
Okay. So I I didn't have in terms of a very clear cut ki acha, this time I every 1 month I'll do it, every 2 months I'll do it. But I try to, for example, if I have read a topic, in the next few days I'd like to go back to it. Some people, what they do is they go back to it that very same day itself. If I had that time and if I felt, I used to sometimes, if I read something in the morning, I used to ask myself, do I remember it? And if I feel I could remember it, I would say push that revision to some other day. But if I felt that, you know, I'm gradually not like I don't remember it anymore, or slight bits of it I remember, I'd go back to it that day itself. But within 3-4 days, I'd like to go back to that topic, and over a long period of time, I feel the third revision would happen, say a month later or something like that. I didn't have like very clear cut ones, but it depended on how I was doing at that time. I used to like keep asking myself, Acha, this is something that I did do, but do I even remember it? So those questions I think were guiding ways in terms of how I went about my revision. But there were no clear cut plans of that sort.
Ma'am, and you have done that.
So, 1 second, huh?
But strictly asking for prelim, like on the one side you have the like your standard books and NCERTs, your classrooms, everything, which is covering your static part and conceptual part. On the other side we have your magazines and the current affairs from the newspaper. So when you like take the paper, how you feel like what kind of weightage should be given to these?
For prelims or mains?
For prelims.
For prelims, I just stuck to basic books.
Even I'm asking about the weightage between these like books and the totally current affairs which we study like from the magazines or the newspaper.
In terms of weightage, I can't say, but current affairs is important, but also like unless and so for example, something like economics, unless and until like the nature of questions that are coming, it's more based on a conceptual understanding of the subject rather than something which happened in the news. So current affairs, there's too much to cover, I feel. Your basics should be intact. After that, whatever one source you're using for current affairs, stick to that. So your yearly compilation, or if you're using your monthlies, just stick to that. Don't fret about it, because there'll always be something you won't know. Be okay with the fact. And there's always something the person sitting next to you also won't know. So everyone's on the same page. Just don't think, Acha, that person is doing more, I need to do that. As long as you're doing your best and sticking to the basics, sticking to the basic books at least, I think you're good to go. Yeah.
As I was going last year ethics CSE paper, I have seen the questions are too long, and I am having a problem that I could not read with a very fast pace and could not understand what the examiner is trying to say in that question. So how to increase the reading space in that, and how to make that the question is understood to me.
Yeah, so ethics paper, time management is a definite issue. Even this time also, I barely managed to complete my paper. Last time, because I was writing in Hindi, a lot of questions I left. So the only solution is practice. Like, I can't give you anything else. Even in terms of understanding the question, go through previous year question papers, try to attempt them. In terms of answer writing, ethics paper very important, because quick answer writing, and in terms of understanding whether you want to attempt the case studies first, whether you want to attempt the first paper first, only like practicing will help you with that, nothing else.
What should be the ideal time to start the answer writing of the ethics long-term case study like question?
There's no ideal time. Matlab,
From when to start? Because just
from when to start in terms of preparation time?
Yes, because we have just started.
I think you've just started your preparation. Next year you'll be giving prelims. 3 months before the prelims, I would suggest, if you're giving for the first time, at least 3 months before the prelims, stop preparing for mains. So right now, I think you'll be going through your basic books basic other preparation towards. So whenever you start your ethics and you finish your ethics, I think after say 5-6 months, you should start answer writing of all sorts. And like continue with that before 3 months of your prelims.
And in the exam,
1 second,
in the exam they are asking some type of keywords and the tail words which I could not understand, and I could not make them what they are asking in the question.
I think it's the same. Go through previous year paper, see how they're handling those keywords, practice. There's no like other way about it, and help, like ask your teachers from ethics, approach them. That is the only way to.
From ethics, the keywords and the tails.
What is the source of social issues?
Source of social issues. There's no one source for social issues because the topics are such, it's as varied as, say, I think population, women, communalism, this, that. So I made my own notes. Some people also go through 11th class sociology. I personally didn't go through that. But I think in terms of current affairs also, there are separate sections for all of these issues. You can use examples. Certain historical background also helps. So for that, I think also you would be, if you're attending coaching classes here, certain notes will be provided, so you can stick to that as well.
Ma'am, how to start essay preparation?
Essay preparation, I already said. You need to start writing, reading other people's essays. Toppers' answer sheets are available. So go through them, see what they did different. There's a certain flow apart from just examples. And so sometimes what people do is they populate the entire essay with quotes, with examples, with everything. That also doesn't work. There needs to be a certain flow. You need to understand what the topic is. And the nature of the topics is changing so much. So this time, essay was a big challenge for many people because they weren't clear-cut answers. More and more philosophical questions are coming up. So just try to understand what the topic is trying to say and approach it from as many different dimensions as possible. And at the same time, not just dimensions will also help. So sometimes what people do is, and like I also have done it in the past, and I think it's a good idea also, ki approach any topic which is given from a political angle, from a social angle, from a international angle, this angle, that angle. That is good. But that's only one aspect of it, and that also a certain mechanical thing comes into it. And the nature of questions and the nature of topics that are coming are not suited for that sort of understanding also. So rather than sticking to a template, which you sometimes go with, ki, acha, if an essay comes, this is what I'll do. Try to understand what the topic is saying and develop different dimensions according to that. And then again, practice is something what will help you apart from looking at toppers' answer sheets.
How you understood the syllabus? Because if we see the syllabus, we find that there are certain keywords we don't understand. How you decoded the syllabus?
I don't think there's a necessary decoding of the syllabus which is required. There are clear-cut words which are present. UPSC preparation, I think there is material available on anything. You have your teachers as well who can explain to you stuff. But like there's no decoding required. But say for example, parliament is mentioned or parliamentary systems are mentioned. I think there is one term which talks about the judiciary, or certain like any sort of term like that. There's no decoding which is required. You just need to look at various aspects, the problems say that are plaguing the judiciary or plaguing the parliament, how to solve them. And these are the probable questions which you can come, and the decoding can also be done through analyzing previous year papers. You have 15-20 year papers available with you, and invariably often similar terms mentioned in the syllabus are often used in the previous year papers as well. So an analysis of previous year papers will help you decode that as well.
Can you tell your strategy in terms of timeline, that by what time we should at least complete the NCRTs, by what time we should pick up for specifically test series, for prelims and in that term?
Okay, so I think abhi what month is it right now? It's June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So you have 7 months here, and then okay. I think again this depends from person to person, but if you're dividing, I wouldn't be able to say this for sure because I didn't plan this in this way, and 7 months it stretched out a little bit for me, especially after my graduation, and I had my background in history also, so my optional required a bit different sort of work. But I think towards the end of this year, by December, you should be done with both to a certain extent, at least one reading, one in fact more, I think revision also of both of a certain extent, December, January. And ideally by that time you should also start answer writing of some sort. So the second revision will also happen during that time. It's not as if everything will be in your head, but some sort of answer writing preparation is required before you give your prelims also. I personally feel that. So start your answer writing preparation then, and also start a revision of the previous year, of whatever you've done, till that time. So a revision of that sort, I think, that is a rough sort of idea that I can give you. I haven't thought about it, but I'll still chalk out something and let you know later. I think because I sort of decided towards the latter end of my graduation that I want to take this, I took that time to get a familiarity of the syllabus and then start my preparation. So yeah, that familiarity was provided to me in the third year of graduation, after which I properly started my studies, devoting like a lot of time to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.